I'll see the title. Now Hulk Hogan passed away. So Malcolm Jamal passed away, Ozzy Osbourne passed away. Now Hulk Hogan passes away. You can't make this up. Yeah, one of this. You can't make this up, man. Wow, wow. Just got the news. Hulk Hogan passed away. You know, they say people pass away in threes, especially when it comes to celebrities. So Malcolm Jamal Warner, Ozzy Osbourne, and now Hulk Hogan. Whoever would have thought Hulk Hogan and Ozzy Osbourne passed away in the same week? Whoever would have thought? Ozzy Osbourne, Hulk Hogan, and Malcolm Jamal Warner. Whoever would have thought? Wow. Sound is good. Thanks, Robcat. So, yeah, Robcat, Hulk Hogan passed away. We were just talking about Ozzy Osbourne, now Hulk Hogan passes away. Wow. Jesus Christ, man. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. I'm still tripping on the whole Ozzy thing. We're still dealing with Ozzy, the tributes, all that. I'm watching documentaries, and boom, Hulk Hogan passes away. Wow. Oh my gosh, man. This is wow, 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 wow. So, okay, let's get started with Hulk Hogan, man. Hulk Hogan uh, brought wrestling, as y'all know, to the mainstream. Mainstream wrestling, you know, WWE, WWF, WWE, Vince McMahon, you know, they made wrestling mainstream. This is, I say mainstream because when you look at the old school wrestling, your Ric Flair era, your Sting, your Road Warriors, or World Class Wrestling, all that, Dusty Rhodes, that's the old school wrestling. Even though these names were prevalent during the Hulk Hogan era, Hulk Hogan came about during the mid 80s. I want to say mid 80s. And as y'all know, he became a household name. But you still had regional wrestling that was more underground. Now, I love looking at the old school underground. When I say underground, I'm not talking about mainstream where I call you Hulk Hogan era. Hulk Hogan represented an era. He really commercialized wrestling. And I'm not saying that in a bad way because when it got commercialized, you know, it made money. It brought wrestling to the forefront. But there's a big but. That kind of eliminated the old school regional wrestling. The old school regional wrestling was, you know, you had your independent networks, your um, independent circuits. I want to say your independent circuits. And to me, there were more when you had your regional wrestling and your independent. It was more homegrown. It was more. It just seemed more organic to me. And when Hulk Hogan came around, and I'm not blaming Hulk Hogan, but it made it more mainstream. It made it more ESPN-ish. It just was not, didn't have that same feel. Didn't have that same local feel to it. And I'm not knocking it. Some people like mainstream stuff. Some people like more underground local stuff. And I was more of the underground local. I like watching stuff on TBS as far as, like I said, the Midnight Express, Ric Flair, Bill Eadie, who's Mask Avenger, who was y'all made up known as Axe from Demolition, even though Demolition was part of the whole mainstream WWE. But prior to that, Bill Eadie was the Mask Avenger. That was that old school circuit, man. That old school circuit was, to me, it was more entertaining. It was more mafioso type of feel to it. When I say mafioso, just meaning the skits were just, I don't know, I can't explain it. When I say mafioso entertainment, I'm talking like that old school feel, meaning like if y'all, I recently discovered Texas Chainsaw Massacre was created by the mafia. That was mafia directed, funding and all that stuff. So that kind of stuff in Hollywood. Um, Hold on, let me make sure he gives me the right amount because I do not want to go overloaded on the highway because DOT is out and about. DOT is out and about. But yeah, man, it's just a feel. It's just like I said, it's a mainstream, and Hulk Hogan just represent that next step for the wrestling and going into the mainstream. And uh, boom, boom. Okay, I hope he. Okay, he's on the phone. Whatever. Okay, y'all. I'm sorry. Just trying to make sure he gives me the right amount because DOT is out there with the cherries, with the flashing lights, pulling trucks over. So don't overload, man. Don't overload, man. Don't want to give the DOT no reason to see no hump on my back and pull me over. Um, yeah, Hulk Hogan, man. Like I said, he represents the era. He represents mainstream. He represents, I guess, families more viewing the wrestling because I wouldn't say it's almost like the old school wrestling wasn't family friendly. It was, but it wasn't. It was like a more regional thing. Like people in the South took their kids to the wrestling events and they portrayed, a lot of violence. Like I remember when the Road Warriors jabbed the spike in Dusty Rhodes' eye. So stuff like that was like uh, stuff like that. Vince McMahon did away with that kind of stuff. It was more or less you still had. I can't even explain it because you had simulated violence, but it wasn't as graphic. Like I said, the most graphic thing I remember was the Road Warriors jabbing one of the spikes in allegedly in Dusty Rhodes' eye. That kind of stuff was like that was entertaining to me. When when Vince McMahon came along during the Hulk Hogan era, they cleaned all that up for the most part. It wasn't as it wasn't as dramatic and streetsy. If it was more Hollywood. Does that make sense to y'all? It was more Hollywood. It wasn't the old school regional wrestling was more streetsy. It had a more street feel to it. It had a more backwoods street. You had Bubba with the beer belly. It was more of a like a down home South more brawl. And then Vince McMahon came along, he cleaned all that up, man. He took away the grittiness, the griminess of wrestling and made it like very, very presentable to the mainstream. And it just took away that whole redneck, good old boy feel to it. Just totally took that away. And so, um, but Hulk Hogan, of course, is an icon. He's a household name. So nothing uh, bad to say about Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan did his thing. Shout out to Hulk Hogan, him and his family. Um, Unfortunately, y'all do know about the little scandal that they had with the Gawker. Some guy, some weird shit where some guy was a fan of Hulk Hogan, him and his wife, and then uh, I know it's about to get weird, y'all. You know what? I ain't gonna even get weird. I'm gonna say y'all know about the Gawker situation. If not, look it up. I'm not gonna even mention that. It's just some weird stuff happened with Hulk Hogan and a fan. Let's just say a fanboy and his wife, and Hulk Hogan was invited to their house, and I'm gonna leave it at that because I don't want to get weird on y'all because it's kind of weird, freaky, weird nonsense going on. But that happened, of course. But then Hulk Hogan, and then y'all know the steroid scandal. So Hulk Hogan there were a lot of dark sides going on with the whole his whole career in WWE, and I remember the whole steroid thing going on, and Vince McMahon. That's a whole yeah. I mean, let me just say, I say that to say this, man. Hulk Hogan brought us a lot of entertainment. Um, as y'all know, he did movies. He did a movie with Sylvester Stallone, Rocky 3, I think. Um, I can't remember the character that Hulk Hogan. And then y'all know Hulk Hogan did his own TV show, Thunder in Paradise. Um, he had a serial, of course, him and Mr. T. Uh, bunch of cameos in movies. He did, like I say, he did his own TV show, man. So yeah, Hulk Hogan was really made a mark, especially during the 80s and early 90s. So the man is definitely a household name. And it's funny because with Hulk Hogan, then you had other household names like Andre the Giant, Ultimate Warrior, Macho Man, who else? Hacksaw Jim Duggan. I can go down a list. I mean, if there was no Hulk Hogan, there would be no Dwayne Rock Johnson. There would be no John Cena. There would be no Batista, who started in Doom. So uh, Hulk Hogan paved the way for a lot of wrestlers to become movie stars. And so you got to thank Hulk Hogan for that. You know what I'm saying? So like I said, John Cena, Rock, Dwayne Johnson, um, John Cena. Yeah, that's John Cena. Yeah, man. I watched a movie with John Cena the other night. It was a comedy, him and Kevin Hart, man. So Kevin Hart and John Cena do a lot of comedies together. Anywho, I say that to say that yeah, Hulk Hogan paved the way for that. He was the pioneer for the wrestler to become the actor. And so yeah, you gotta thank Hulk Hogan for that. You gotta give credit where credit's due. Regardless of whatever scandal Hulk Hogan has been through, you gotta give him props for the pay increase, the exposure, even though I didn't agree. Well, for selfish reasons, like I said, I like the old school. And hell, I don't even think Ric Flair would have been recognized, because again, Ric Flair didn't bring wrestling to the mainstream. It was Hulk Hogan, and then when people began to look at WWE, then they began to look at WCW. That opened up the whole thing for Sting, Ravishing Rude. So yeah, man, Hulk Hogan definitely represents an era. He represents an era that MTV or a BET or a H1. Hulk Hogan was there, and he influenced our culture, especially in the mid '80s, all through the '80s. I want to say all through the '80s because when WWE hit the scene, it became a household name, and children. You had cartoons, of course. You had wrestling cartoons. Sergeant Slaughter, who was on GI Joe, that played a big part. GI Joe and the wrestlers had a big connection. So yeah, man, definitely a part of children's culture, um, entertainment culture, sports culture, wrestling culture, entertainment culture, however you want to put it, man. It was Hulk Hogan had his hands or his face in every video games. Every time of marketing that you can imagine that they would try to do, whether it be toys, video games, cartoons, movies, uh, cereal, clothing. Or they even had like wrestlers like trying to play rock music. It was just man, it was definitely an opportunistic time. They brought in, like I said, they made a lot of money. Um, needless to say, there's a dark side to that. Steroids became popular again. A lot of people juicing up. Um, but I say that to say this, man. I mean, whether good or bad, Hulk Hogan made his mark. So yeah, I'm just shocked that he died in the same week as Ozzy. That's to me is more of a shock than anything. You know, um, that's more of a shock than anything. That's like Hulk Hogan and Ozzy dying in the same week is like Michael Jackson and Prince dying in the same week. As y'all know, Prince and Michael Jackson didn't die in the same week, but imagine if they did, it would be on that level. So you got Ozzy, boom, boom, you got Black, then you got Hulk Hogan. Like, oh shoot, wow. So shout out to Hulk Hogan, rest in peace, Hulk Hogan, man. Uh, I'll never forget. I want to tell y'all this story before I close it out. I was watching Cops one day, and cops pulled over Hulk Hogan's son. He had a DUI, and then Hulk Hogan came out there, and those officers, even though they arrested Hulk Hogan's son, their whole demeanor just changed. It's like when you watch Cops, they'd be hard up and they'd be trying to talk to people, but once Hulk Hogan got there, the cops start smiling. Oh, Hulk Hogan. Oh, yeah, we got your son, but he'll have to go down. And so they really were working with Hulk Hogan. They weren't. Their whole demeanor changed once they found out. Once Hulk Hogan came on the scene and found out his son was getting arrested, the police were real nice, man. They were real cordial, and they were really professional about it. So they were professionally nice. Let me just say that. So I remember that happening, but yeah, this is this is. I think this is more of a shock to me that it happens right after Ozzy passes away. Ozzy passed away, then boom, Hulk Hogan passed away. I think that's more of a shock. I'm not shocked that Hulk Hogan passes away. I just shocked that Hulk Hogan and Ozzy passed away within days of each other. That's the shock to me. That's the surprise to me. That's what's kind of a blow to me, that you have two icons die within days of each other. So what can I say, y'all? All right, so yeah, I always wanted to come on here, man. Shout out to y'all. Thanks for the likes, man. Shout out to Hulk Hogan. Here we go again. Like I said, Ozzy passed away, Hulk Hogan passed away, and I forgot to mention Malcolm Jamal Warner. He passed away. Now, Malcolm Jamal Warner, they say he drowned. So rest in peace to him and his family, man. So with that being said, y'all, again, this is breaking news. I didn't really plan this. I just found out, so I kept the camera on. I was planning on doing another show, but this was not the title. Obviously, this just happened, so shout out to Hulk Hogan, man. I grew up with Hulk Hogan, so shout out. All right, y'all. I'm out.